What's up, you guys? It's Pete Thorne. Check it out from Crazy Tube Circuits, coming to you all the way from Europe. It's the Venus. This is a true tube overdrive that aims to capture, shoots for the tones of the classic Chandler tube driver, maybe most famously used by Joe Satriani, Eric Johnson, and David Gilmour. The interesting thing about all those players, they're all different. They've all got their own styles, all fantastic lead guitarists, but there is a similarity running through some of their lead tones when I think about it, or most of their lead tones. When I think about Eric's lead tone, David Gilmour's lead tone, Joe's lead tone, there's a smoothness and a singing, soaring, sustaining quality often to their lead tones. So it kind of makes sense that they would all be users of one pedal that definitely was known for creating those sounds, which is the Chandler tube driver. And also when I think about their tones, sometimes I think of their sounds as being like with a slightly rolled off attack, a little bit more smoother tone. I mean, people talk about Eric violin tone, or maybe Gilmour with his sort of use of fuzz in the 70s and going into the 80s adopting the tube drivers. Kind of makes sense. I mean, there is something akin to a fuzz with this pedal. I mean, you could definitely get it into fat, fuzzy territory with a smoother, rolled off attack, much like sort of like a tube big muff. It's different, but there's something similar there to that sound. So let's take a look at the controls and what's the same on this pedal as a tube driver and what's different. So they give you volume control and drive control. And on the Venus, there's a full 3-band EQ. Now on the original versions, I think, of a tube driver, I think they made a 4-knob version and a 3-knob, and maybe the difference between those was a separate bass and treble EQ, as I remember, and a tone control, just a straight up tone on the 3-knobber. Correct me if I'm wrong about that in the comments, but I'm pretty sure. This one gives you full 3-band EQ with highs, mids, and lows. Okay, you also get this line driver switch. This switches in a buffer on the output, so it'll drive your signal through the rest of your pedals and all the way through to your amp real clear. I liked the sound with that in. I thought it was really good. At least in my setup here on my desk, if I switched that out, it seemed a little softer, a little less punchy. So I kept that in for my whole video. Now, last but not least here, you get this tight switch, and that's a nice option. Original tube driver has a real fat low end, but if you want tighter sounds and a little bit more punch and attack, you just switch that tight switch in and it sounds great. Original tube drivers, people would switch out the tubes sometimes and use different tubes. So you could use a 12AX7 or a 12AT7. In the Venus, they've actually chosen to use kind of an oddball tube as the stock tube that actually has 1/2 of a 12AX7 and 1/2 of a 12AT7. That was just the tube that they chose for the sound they were going for. Over something like a 12AX7, that's going to be a little less gain, it's going to be a little clearer, but you can experiment in this pedal just like in the original tube drivers. You can switch out the tube if you want to open it up and do that. So original tube driver, I've plugged into them numerous times, and it was always a pedal that I kind of had a hard time getting my head around. Like, well, how am I supposed to use this? Because I guess I'm probably always looking for some sort of Marshall in a box, which it's not. It's got its own sound, and like I say, it's a little bit akin to a fuzz, especially at higher gain levels. But certainly as you start to turn the bias control down and as you start to get the gain up, that fuzzy quality comes in. Other settings, once again, completely different. Can be a distortion or can be an overdrive. But it always has this nice, smooth, sort of singing tube character to it with fat mids. And you can turn the mids down here on the EQ, but the general tone of the pedal just has this singing, fat, really guitar-friendly mid-range. And I think you can even hear that in my song, like in some of the lead parts when I bend a note and just hold it, and it almost sounds like it's going to take off into feedback, and that was just at low volume sitting here at my desk recording. So I'm going to play a bit more through the pedal, show you some of those tones from the song at the beginning of the video and how I got them. Let's get into it. It's the Venus from Crazy Tube Circuits. So for the first tone in the song at the beginning of the video, I tried to find kind of a good medium ground setting that I could use as like good basic drive sound in front of a relatively clean amplifier. So I also tried to use all the pickup positions and take the volume from all the way down around 1 or 1.5 on the guitar all the way up to 10 within the span of just a few bars. So I started with a part like this. It's a really good middle ground setting, I think, for the pedal. And I think by the time I get the volume all the way up on the guitar, you can hear that you know, sort of violin-like quality in that it's almost like a tube fuzz. That's the way that I hear it. As like a drive or distortion, but with soft edges. You know what I mean? The attack and stuff is smooth. And it does sort of bring to mind that Eric Johnson tone. I'm not one that can really play like Eric Johnson. Let's see. Licks like that. That kind of smooth violin, smooth around the edges attack tone. So I should mention on this tone as well, I've got the tight switch in. The tight switch really helps to keep things like even less fuzzy actually. So with it out, it's like really that violin-y, super smooth attack. I'll show you what I mean. So it's really, really soft around the edges. It's a cool sound though. It's just, I think of it as like tube fuzz. That's what it sounds like to me. So I wanted to get a good crunch rhythm tone, and to do that I just dropped the drive way down, and I've got the line driver in, which ups the gain, but it also seems to increase the clarity. I just like the sound of the line driver in, so I'll show you what it sounds like in and out. Softens the top end in a way I just like it in. Just sounds a little more ballsy and punchy and clear with the line driver in, so I like that sound. And as far as tone controls, the mids are down around 10 o'clock. Treble is up on about 1 o'clock at the high end, and the low end's on about noon. Got the volume just past noon. Let's take a look at the bias control, because I want to show you what that does. I prefer the sound all the way up. When you turn it down, it gets fuzzier. Things really get soft then, right? I mean, you can make it sound like super broken. I don't know where that came from. I just like it in the healthy position. Sounds better to me. So for the last lead in the song at the beginning of the video, I went for a smoother thing. This is about as smooth as I like to get personally, and it'll go way smoother than this if you want to roll off the attack even more. But I did bring the bias down a little bit, and I've got the gain 3/4 the way up. I got the mids boosted a bit, highs up a bit, low cuts on, line drivers in. The sound sounds like this. Pretty darn smooth. Thanks so much you guys for watching my video on the Venus from Crazy Tube Circuits. Tube overdrive, fashioned after the good old Chandler tube driver, but with some new features. Fat, warm tube, light breakup all the way through to fuzzy craziness. Gilmour tones, the tones of Eric Johnson, the tones of Joe Satriani. Check it out further at the link down in the video description below. And thanks for watching. I'm Pete Thorne. Take care.